Every single day, men and women report to work on a floating city where one wrong step means death. Not injury, death. The flight deck of a U.S. aircraft carrier kills and maims at rates that dwarf almost every other job in the entire military. We are talking about catapults that can rip a man apart in under a second. Engines powerful enough to suck a full-grown human body in whole. Steel cables under so much tension they can slice through flesh like a blade. And yet, every single day, thousands of sailors do this job, and most of them come home. How? Because of the most brutal, precise, and demanding training system on Earth. What they go through before they ever set foot on a live flight deck will genuinely shock you. What these sailors do, what they endure, and what they must master just to stay alive. Coming up right now. This is the story of a job most Americans never hear about. Not the pilots, not the admirals. The men and women in the colored jerseys, down on that deck, doing the work that keeps the entire machine running. And before we get into it, if you have family or friends who served on a carrier, drop a comment below. Tell us which ship they served on. Here is where the story really begins. Right before anything happens on a U.S. aircraft carrier flight deck, before a single jet even rolls into position, there is a system in place that most people have never heard of. And once you understand it, you will never look at carrier footage the same way again. Every single person on that flight deck wears a specific colored jersey. This is not a fashion choice. This is a survival system that the U.S. Navy developed over 100 years of trial and error, starting all the way back when USS Langley first set sail. Yellow jerseys, these are the directors. The men and women in yellow are in charge of moving aircraft around the entire flight deck. They are also the catapult officers and arresting gear officers. These are the most experienced people on deck. They hold so much authority that they are the only personnel on the entire carrier who do not display their rank on their uniform. Their skill matters more than their seniority. Getting a yellow jersey is not handed to you. You spend months, sometimes over a year, first wearing a blue jersey, doing entry-level work, chalking wheels, chaining aircraft down, learning the rhythm of the deck, before you can even be considered for yellow. Green jerseys run the catapults and the arresting gear. They are the men who work the actual machinery that launches and catches jets. Former sailors have described this as the most mechanically dangerous role on the entire deck. Red jerseys handle weapons, ordnance, and crash and salvage operations. They are also your firefighters. When something goes wrong on the flight deck, and it does go wrong, the Reds are the ones running toward it. Purple jerseys fuel aircraft. Purple is nicknamed grapes by carrier crews. They are crawling under jets with fuel hoses in winds that can knock a grown man off his feet. Brown jerseys are the plane captains, the sailors personally responsible for preparing each individual aircraft. They know their jet better than almost anyone. White jerseys handle quality assurance, safety inspections, and include the landing signal officers who guide pilots back onto the ship. And blue jerseys are the entry point, trainee handlers, elevator operators, the ones who are still learning the deck. This color-coded system is not just tradition. It is the difference between controlled chaos and a catastrophe. Every set of eyes on that deck can instantly identify who is responsible for what, without a single word being spoken over the roar of jet engines. Before we go any further, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Now let's keep going, because what comes next is where the real training story starts. Here is the part that most people never think about. Before 2024, flight deck crews had only one real way to train for this job. They trained on the actual flight deck. Live aircraft, live catapults, live danger. There was no simulation. There was no practice run in a controlled environment. You either learned on the job or you got hurt on the job. That changed when the Office of Naval Research partnered with the Naval Air Warfare Center Training Systems Division to develop what are called Flight Deck Crew Refresher Training Expansion Packs, or TEPs. These are virtual, simulation-based training systems that allow sailors to practice flight deck scenarios before they step onto a live carrier. They replicate the sounds, the chaos, the rolls, and the emergencies that a flight deck crew faces in real operations. For the first time in the history of U.S. Navy carrier aviation, a sailor can make a life-or-death mistake in a simulator rather than on a real deck with real jets behind them. But simulation is only one layer of this training. The deeper layer involves shore-based facilities scattered across the country. Before a carrier strike group goes to sea, its crew runs through a full training cycle that includes shore-based navigation simulators, complete with visual displays and all the bridge equipment found on the actual ship. Commanding officers take their watch teams through these simulators to practice communications, ship handling procedures, and emergency responses. Air traffic controllers go through their own shore-based controller simulators and actually run live aircraft control from shore stations. Combat systems operators go to specialized facilities to train on the latest warfare tactics. Every department, every single one, has a shore-based component to its training cycle before anyone goes to sea. And even after all of that, when the carrier does go to sea, training does not stop. It never stops. The reason is simple. New sailors report to a carrier almost every single day. On any given deployment, a carrier is home to around 5,000 men and women. Some are veterans of multiple deployments, others are reporting to their first ever ship. The training challenge on a carrier has been described by former commanding officers as managing the readiness of a city, where the population changes constantly. Now here is something the Pentagon's own data confirmed in 2024 and 2025, and it is something every American who cares about this military needs to understand. A government watchdog report released in September 2024 found that most U.S. aircraft carriers and surface ships are so short-staffed that they cannot complete regular maintenance at sea. The report specifically cited a lack of in-depth and hands-on training for sailors in maintenance and repair techniques. This is not a minor logistics problem. When a carrier is understaffed, maintenance falls behind. When maintenance falls behind, equipment becomes unreliable, and on a flight deck, unreliable equipment kills people. The numbers confirm this concern. A Pentagon report tracking military aviation from 2019 to 2024 recorded 4,820 total mishaps. 222 of those were classified as Class A, the most severe category. They involved destroyed aircraft, fatalities, or permanent disability. Those 222 incidents killed 90 service members and cost $9.4 billion. The rate of serious accidents went from 1.30 mishaps per 100,000 flight hours in 2020 to 2.02 by 2024. That is a 55% increase. In 2025, major Class A aviation accidents in the Navy nearly doubled from the previous year, going from 8 in 2024 to 14 in 2025. Some of those incidents happened in direct combat. An official investigation released in December 2025 confirmed that the carrier strike group built around USS Harry S. Truman had fewer training opportunities than expected before deployment. The investigation stated plainly that this had adversely impacted interoperability, meaning the different ships in the strike group were not working together the way they needed to. 2 FA-18 Super Hornets fell from that carrier's deck during the deployment. One was lost when the crew overshot a carrier landing. Another was struck by friendly fire. Both aircrew ejected safely. These are not just statistics. These are the real-world consequences of training gaps in one of the most demanding work environments on the planet. Let's talk about the most physically dangerous role on the entire carrier, because it is probably not the one you are thinking of. Most people would guess the pilots. The pilots are flying at speeds nobody's body was designed for, landing on a deck that is 300 meters long at over 240 kilometers per hour. That is absolutely dangerous. But the pilots are inside the aircraft. The sailors down on the deck, they are outside. They are exposed. The green jersey aviation boatswain's mates, the ones running the catapults and arresting gear, operate machinery that carries enormous stored energy. The steam catapults on older Nimitz-class carriers generate forces powerful enough to accelerate a fully loaded jet from 0 to 168 miles per hour in under 3 seconds. The cables that stop jets on landing, arresting wires, are under tension that can turn a snapped cable into a weapon. In 1981, an EA-6B Prowler crashed on USS Nimitz, killing 14 sailors and Marines and injuring 45 more. In 1991, during Operation Desert Storm, a flight deck operator was pulled into the engine of an A-6 intruder. These events are documented. They are real. And they are why the training for these roles is so grueling. The new Gerald R. Ford class carriers, led by USS Gerald R. Ford, have replaced steam catapults with EMALS, which stands for Electromagnetic Aircraft Launch System. EMALS generates fewer mechanical shocks, is compatible with both heavy fighters and lighter unmanned aircraft, and eliminates the entire steam infrastructure that made the old system so mechanically complex and dangerous. The advanced arresting gear on Ford-class ships uses digital precision instead of purely mechanical tension, reducing stress on both aircraft and the gear crews who manage it. But the training demands have not gotten smaller. If anything, they have grown more technical. Here is what the daily rhythm actually looks like for these sailors, and this is the part that most documentaries skip over. A carrier operates on rotating 12-hour flight cycles. During flight operations, the flight deck is fully manned and completely choreographed. There are pre-flight briefs. There are foreign object debris walks, where the entire flight deck crew lines up shoulder to shoulder and walks the entire deck looking for anything small enough to be ingested by a jet engine. A bolt, a tool, a piece of metal. These FOD walks happen before every single flight evolution, because a single small object in the wrong engine can cost a jet and a life. Between flight cycles, maintenance does not stop. Catapults are inspected. Arresting gear is checked. Aircraft are fueled, armed, and serviced. The entire ship, its reactors, its weapons magazines, its communication systems, requires constant attention from trained personnel. Former commanding officer of USS George Washington, one of America's nuclear-powered carriers, described his 30 months in command as a constant, never-ending training challenge. New untrained sailors arrived almost every day. His job was not just to lead, it was to continuously rebuild the readiness of his crew from the ground up. And the nuclear propulsion system underneath it all, that is its own world entirely. Every U.S. Navy aircraft carrier in active service today is nuclear-powered. The Naval Nuclear Propulsion Program as of December 2024 has accumulated over 7,600 reactor years of operation without a single major release of radioactive material that harmed the environment. That record is not an accident. It is the result of a training and selection program so demanding that the Naval Reactors Office controls every aspect of it: selection, training, assignment, and ongoing qualification through direct authority granted by federal law. The new A-1B reactor on Ford-class carriers produces 150% more electrical power than the older reactors on Nimitz-class ships. That power is what makes EMALS work. It is what powers the ship's future directed energy weapon systems. It is the beating heart of the entire platform, and the sailors who maintain it go through years of training before they are ever certified to touch it. The men and women who work these jobs do not get a lot of the recognition they deserve. The pilots get the documentaries. The admirals get the press conferences. But the sailor in the green jersey who is crawling between the wheels of a $30 million jet in a 40-knot wind to check arresting gear, that sailor is the reason the mission happens. The training they go through is not just about skill. It is about culture, about developing a mindset where complacency is the enemy, where every single evolution, no matter how routine it seems, is treated as if it could go wrong. Because on a carrier flight deck, it absolutely can. The U.S. Navy has spent over 100 years building that culture. And the men and women serving today are the product of everything that history taught. If this gave you a new appreciation for what these sailors do every single day, hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed. There is a lot more coming on U.S. carrier operations, and you will not want to miss it.